Um, and of course, to teach us about these topics, we have uh, an amazing builder right here with us tonight, and the last nights he's been with us as well. Um, he's the founder of Better Idea, or that's Better IDE here, IDEA, which is an amazing online IDE for AO as well. Um, and it has a lot of really cool features that I think you will also see later throughout the workshop. Um, Also, our mentor is the community manager of Arweave India. And yeah, without further ado, let's all welcome Ankush. Take it away.
Thank you, Theo. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is doing fine. Right,
Good,
so
good. Yep.
without any further ado, let's get right into it. So, by the end of the session, you will learn uh, two really cool features of AO, as mentioned by Theo already. One of them is CRON, which can be used as an automation feature. So, it keeps calling a function at a fixed interval, and the other thing is an SQLite database that exists totally on chain on AO. So I'll share my screen now. Uh, yep. So in today's session, we will be building something like Google Calendar. So if you commonly attend events or do meetings online, you would get this reminder from Google Calendar or whatever calendar that you use that um, you have some event and it sends you a notification that hey, this event is about to start, you should do something. So we will be building something really similar to that, and for that we will be using Better Idea as the IDE on which we will be developing that. So you can access it at ide.betteridea.dev. I'll leave a link in the chat, and once you open the IDE you will get a screen very similar to this. Also, before we get started, I already have all of the code that we are about to use in this notebook over here. If I go into project, share, it gives me a link and I'll paste that in the chat too. And if you open that link, you will get the same code that I have written here. So you can follow along quite easily. I'll close this project and start a new one. So at the home, you can click on the new project and create a new project. I'll name it RVPH calendar. And since we are using the SQLite database, we have to go into more options and select the SQLite module from below here. And also, since we are using the cron feature, you have to enable cron, and I'll leave it at 1 minute. So what this means is it will keep calling some particular function, which is a handler on AO every 1 minute. So now that all the settings have been done, I can click on create project. Okay, here I have a handler given to me already. Now this handler handles the cron messages. So what cron actually does is we have these compute units and messaging units on AO, right? So what cron does is it sends a message to your process at fixed intervals of time, and that message has a tag called action, and the value for that action for that tag is equal to this string cron right here, and that makes this function that we define here run. So if you go into your terminal right now and wait for a couple of minutes, you should get some messages that you have received a message with the action cron. And by default, that only happens when you are trying to run some Lua code. So uh, if we wait a couple of minutes, we should get a message in our inbox. Okay, right here. new message from my wallet address and action equals to cron. If I go into this message, I can see that it has the action cron, and every time we receive this message, we can perform this function. So I'll run this code here, and it says undefined, which means that the code has run successfully. And now if we do some interaction in the next minute, it should send more messages, and this time it should print that. And so if you see in this function, it says that cron ticked at, and we have a message.timestamp. So what this will do is it will print the timestamp of when we received the message every minute. Yep. And as you can see right here, it prints cron ticked at whatever the timestamp that is. Okay, so um, next we need an SQL database where we'll be storing three things. The first thing is we want to store an ID, which will be a unique ID for whatever reminder that we want to set. The second will be the timestamp for when we want to send the reminder, and the third will be a general message, which will be a string which will accompany the reminder, basically the message for that reminder. And to do that, I will do db equals to require lsqlite 3 and then return db. Yeah, so what this does is it imports the SQLite package, which is available to us on AO, and returns us all the different functions that is available. And if you look into this list, there is a function called open memory, which creates an in-memory database. So we will add that function to the require command. And now if I run this, it should return. Okay, okay, there's a typo. Okay, now that the database has been created, it returns us an empty object. All right, cool. And I'll comment the return part and do db colon exec, which is the function to run some SQLite queries. And I will use this to create a table which will exist in our database. For that, I'll write create table if not exists. This is important because if we run the same query more than once without using this particular statement, if not exists, it would throw us an error, and we don't want that. So if we do create table if it does not exist, and we will name our table reminders, and inside it we can set the column names. I'll use id as an integer, which will also be the primary key, and I'll make that auto increment. So every time I add a new thing to our table, it will automatically add one with a new ID, which is one more than the previous item that we had in our database. Next, we will have a message, which is just text, and then we will have a timestamp, which will also be an integer. And then I'll just return a message. Okay, let's try running this, and we get an OK printed over here. And to actually view that the database was and the table was actually created, we can go over to the SQLite Explorer on the left side over here and click on fetch tables. And as you can see, we have two tables over here, which one of which is reminders and the other one is SQLite sequence. Now the SQLite sequence is a default table that gets created automatically every time you will use the auto increment query here. And if we click on the reminders, we will get the structure of our table right here. All right, cool. Next, we want to create a function that will add a reminder on our table. But before that, I will comment this print function here because I don't want all these messages when I'm not really using cron. So now that the function is not doing anything, it should not print anything, and I'll clear the terminal for now. Okay. Now, before we create the function that will add a reminder on our database, if you go back to the notebook that I shared with you, it has three functions in it, three predefined functions. I'll copy and paste those here. Now, the first function is called ts2dt, which is short for timestamp to date time. And you can pass in a timestamp integer to this function and an offset. Now, the offset will account for the different time zones that there are, and this will essentially return an object that will contain the different date and time as separate entities instead of a single timestamp that you passed in. The next function does the reverse of what we did. It converts a date and time into a timestamp integer. So you can pass in all the different year, month, date, hours, minutes, and the offset, and it will return a single integer. The third function we have is the format timestamp. You just give it a timestamp and a time zone offset, and it will give you a string, which is just a prettified version of the same date time, um, the timestamp to date time function above. Now let's try using the format timestamp here. I'll go into inbox and click on the first message. Here you can find an entry called timestamp. I'll copy its value, close it. I'll go into the terminal and use the format timestamp but function. I pass in the timestamp as an integer and hit run. And this gives us an error because we did not pass in the timestamp offset. Oh, we did not actually run this code cell, so the function was not defined. I'll run it now. And now if we run it again, it should give us a string. And yes, it gives us the date time for that timestamp. By default, this will be in the UTC time zone. But since I am in the plus 5:30 GMT time zone, I will pass in 5.5 over here. Now this will make sure that I get the um, date time in the correct time zone, which is plus 5:30 hours. And if I run this again, I have the correct time here. Now you can pass in whatever time zone everyone is from, which I think you all are from the um, plus 9 GMT or
Plus
something.
8. Plus
Plus
8.
8.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll pass in 8 over here. And I hope that this is the correct time that you all have right over there. Now this time is the exact time when this particular process was created. So that's quite a while ago, couple of minutes ago. Okay, now that the functions are defined, I'll write a handler that will take in some inputs and add some value to our database. I'll define another function. I'll just copy and paste the same code from the notebook that I shared. And here we have a function called add reminder handler, which takes in a message, and that message will contain all the different data for when you want to set the reminder for. This includes the year, the month, day, hours, minutes, and the data will contain the string for the message. Also, the time zone is optional. If you don't pass in any time zone, it will default at the UTC one. Okay, next we are converting the date time inputs that we gave in to our handler to a single timestamp integer. And next, in the next line, we are checking if the timestamp for the reminder is in the future. So the reminders should only work if if the date and time that you have sent is in the future. And if you send some time that has already passed, which means it is in the past, it will throw an error. And if all of the inputs are correct, it will call the exec function again and format a string which will have a query that we want to insert some data into the reminders table, and that too in the timestamp and the message columns. And the values for that are this um, mod d, which means we have a digit and we have a string, and that will include the reminder timestamp and the message for the reminder. Then we just print this string that we have added a reminder successfully. Next, to actually call this function, we add a handler using the handlers.add function. We give it a name and we check that if it has a particular tag which is called action, and if the value for that action is called add reminder. So if these condition is true, it will run the add reminder handler function. And what you can see here is it's actually calling this function called handle run, and we are passing a function to the handle run function. Now what this here is, whenever I create handlers in the AOS process, I like to have a separate function that will do all the error handling for me, and that function is this one. So we have a function called handle run. It takes in a function and it takes in the message object that is returned to us in the handler. We are using the pcall function. This is a function that we get in Lua, and it's for error handling. We give it the function that we want to call and any data that we want to pass in to that function. Now this gives us two different values. I have called them OK and error. So if the OK value does not exist, it means that there was some error and we are doing some string matching over here to get the error message. Now, if there was an error, we get the error message and we print that error message and also send that error message to the person who called the handler. Let's run this and also run the add reminder handler function and the function to add the reminder. And it does not give us any errors, which is a good thing. So if I do handlers.list in the terminal, I should get a table which contains the add reminder function, the add reminder handler basically, and that's pretty cool. Now that we have defined the handler to add data to our table, let's write some code that will actually add data. So we use the send function to send a message. We want to send it to our own process. So we do target equals to ao.id. And if you look into the add reminder function, we need to pass the year, month, day, hour, minute data and an optional time zone. I'll add in data first. I'll do data equals to sample reminder. Year equals to 2024. The month is 7. The day is 27th. The hour is, for me, it's 3:58 right now. So I will do hour 3 and minute 59. Hour, minute. Okay. Next we have time zone. So I'll do time zone equals to 5.5. And if I run this, it should run the handler. Okay, it gives us a new message that we have some data sample reminder, but this does not print this thing here. It does not print that the reminder was added. And that is because we forgot to add the action. So I'll do action equals to add reminder. And this is the same action as right here. If I run this again, all right, so we get the error message that reminder cannot be a date time in the past. And this error message is being handled by the handle run function that I showed earlier. And we got this error because 3:59, it's 4 right now. So this time that we put here is in the past. So I'll do minutes equals to 0 and hour equals to 4. Or just let's do 4, 4 and 1. Yeah, and I ran this. Bruh. Okay, converts it to a number. Okay, so what's happening here is, since it's 4 p.m. right now, but if we pass in 4 to the hours, it takes it as a 24-hour format. So we have to add 12 to this 4, which makes it 16. And if I run this now, it should, all right. Now it prints that the reminder has been added for my date and 4:1 p.m. And if I go back into the reminders table, you can see that there is now a new entry with the ID of 1, the message sample reminder, and here we have the timestamp. Now this timestamp was created using the date time to timestamp function, and you can see that right here. And if we try the reverse of this function, timestamp to date time, I pass in my timestamp and 5.5. It tells us when the it gives us all the individual components for that date and time. All right, cool. Now there's an important thing that we have to do whenever we are using cron, is that by default the cron functions only run when you are interacting with your process. So if you create a cron function, you set the interval to 10 seconds. Let's assume you set the interval to 10 seconds and you leave the process as it is without performing any actions on it. Now if the process stays dormant, it will not receive any cron messages by default. So if I don't run any Lua code right now and leave this thing for 30 minutes, it will not get a single cron message. But if as soon as I run anything, let's say I run 1+1 and hit enter, it makes the process active, and pretty soon after that I should receive a cron message. But since we have this commented over here, we won't we won't know if even if we receive anything. So I'll uncomment that. and run it again. Yes, Theo.
Yeah. But is this behavior of the cron right now only for this testnet, or um do do you know if this will be solved in the future, especially on mainnet? Uh,
I know this. I think it's just to reduce spam. I mean, you
yeah.
can. There's this function called monitor. I was about to come to it. So
Okay.
by default, it won't trigger cron messages, but as soon as you run dot monitor on the terminal, it will make the process monitored, and after this, it will continue to receive cron messages even if the process is dormant.
Okay. Gotcha.
But by default, it is unmonitored. Yep. All right. Um, so now that we know what the default cron behavior and what happens after you monitored the cron process is, I'll comment this back and add some function that will actually send us reminders. And I'll go back into the sample notebook that I shared and go into the cron handler. Yep. All right. So we have defined a function called cron, which takes in a message. We have an empty object that will contain all the reminders that we have to send. Then it's running a query for fetching all the reminders from from the database. And we have set a condition here that you should send us all the reminders that are not completed. So we have completed equals to false. Now this will be an extra table in here. So let's delete our database. I'll do that by running db equals to nil. Now this will erase our database, and we want to add another column to the table that says completed, and this will be a boolean, which is a true or false value. And by default, this boolean will be not uh, by default this will be false. So every time a new reminder is being created, we give it a message, we give it a timestamp, and the rest of the fields it adds in automatically. All right, I'll run this again. And if I go back into reminders, I should see a, okay, completed boolean. Okay, it should be default false over here. I run this and go back into the reminders table. Okay, there is some cache issue, it seems. Oh, there are no tables. Maybe there. So what I did is I just copy pasted the sample code from the notebook, and what this should be is completed boolean. It should be not null, which means every time we create a new row, this should have some value, and that default value should be false. If we go back into reminders, now we have another column over here which says completed. And I keep getting spammed by the cron handler over here. Okay, so um, all right, cool. Let's go back to the cron function. This function will send reminders whenever the timestamp that we want to set a reminder for has reached. We are running an SQL query that we are selecting all the rows, all the entries from the reminders table where the value for completed is false and the timestamp is less than this digit that we are entering here, which is equal to the timestamp for the cron message. So every time we receive a cron message, we are checking what time the cron message has being what time the cron message was received, and we are comparing that with all of the different entries in our database and fetching all of the entries where the timestamp for the reminder is less than the current timestamp of the message. So this will return all of the entries which need to be sent, all of the reminders that need to be sent, which have not been sent in the past. And we are adding that to this to remind object over here. And once we have all of the reminders, we are running a loop. And inside the loop, we are sending a message to the process with the action of reminder. And inside the data, we are simply sending the message for that reminder. And once the message has been sent, we are updating the database to set the completed column to 1. Now 1 here means true. I can also put in true, but for simplicity, I'll keep it 1. And since every reminder has a unique ID, I am also setting ID equals to a digit, which is the ID of the reminder. And inside the handler, I do the same thing as before. I do handlers.add. I check if the handler has an action equals to cron, and inside its function, I do handle run and I pass the cron function to it. Now if I run this, the handler should get added. And in the list of the handlers, you can see that I have both of the handlers that are necessary to add reminders and to send notifications for that reminder. Now if I try running the send function again, it's 4:11 for me right now. So I'll set the minute to 12. If I run this, I've got an output that but okay, this printed it 4 times, not sure why. Okay, let's try running it again. All right. So I've set a reminder for 4:13 p.m., which has the ID of 2, and as you can see that completed is currently 0. Let's wait for a minute. So also let's monitor the process so it keeps sending the cron messages actively. Right, so it's 4:13 now and we have got a new message. Let's head on to the inbox. And the reminder message that we have received has the action of reminder. So let's open it, and inside data you can see sample reminder. Right, cool. Let's write another handler that will check if we have received any reminder and print it. So we do handlers dot add handle reminder. We check if it has a matching tag called action, which should have the value reminder. And once we get this message, we will simply print reminder message dot data. Let's run this. Check handlers dot list again, and we have a third handler over here. Let's set another reminder for 4:15. Right, we have another uncompleted reminder in our database. I'll set couple of more reminders with different messages. Okay, now we should have three. Okay, right now we received a reminder for this one, this entry right here, and it printed that it printed reminder. You have this reminder right now, which is pretty cool. If we wait one more minute, we should get the reminder for go drink water, and in the minute after that, we should get the reminder for get dinner. Nice.
It's so cool.
Yep.
And you really actually did a great job here for
Mhm.
better idea. Like everything's so intuitive. Like having Cron and SQLite on
Yep.
an online IDE and having all of these demos in one platform. It's just yeah, it's amazing.
Yep. Thank you. All right, we have received the reminder for go drink water. And if I switch the tab to the database here, you can see that the completed has been changed from a 0 to 1. And we have one more reminder left for getting dinner, which we should receive in the next minute. Right, while that happens, there are a couple of things you can add on to this reminder system that we have here. This is couple of good things to have which you can do after this workshop. You can try building a front end UI for better user experience. I mean, it can have a date and time picker, and you can set multiple reminders using that through a nice UI. You can create a handler that will tell the user whatever reminders that they have. So right now I'm using the database viewer in Better Idea, but not every user will do that, right? So you can have a UI similar to Google Calendar, which tells the user what reminders that they have left. You can add an option to edit already created reminders. So let's say I did a typo over here and I want to edit it. I can't do that right now because I don't have code for that. You can maybe try adding that. So right now, for the reminders, I am sending it to a single process, which is actually my own process, and that does not really make sense, right? If you have some event or you have some meeting with someone, you would want that reminder to go to multiple people, right? So you can add functionality for that too. And the last thing, nobody really keeps their AOS CLI open all the times, right? So even if they receive a reminder message, they won't know it because they don't have AOS open. So you can maybe try using Orbit oracles and send an email. The email will be triggered by your process itself. I think um, I think this program is. I think they send some Orbit tokens to you, right?
Yep,
Yep.
correct.
Yep. So maybe you can give them to people and they can try adding the email notifications functionality to their processes. And this would be pretty cool to see. It would be pretty cool to see that AOS processes can send emails to each other, right?
Yeah, agree. That would be cool.
Yep.
Um,
And yep, we have the
sorry,
reminder for get dinner. Haha.
can I have a question? I
Yes.
think we have time. So right now, the calendar that you made is like a world calendar, right? Like on this specific process, if we have the process ID, we can send a reminder into it. But
Yep.
how do we do it that it I can make it my own? I mean, it's my personal calendar that no one else, even though they have the process ID, they cannot add um their reminders here on my personal calendar. How do
Yep.
you do that?
So what you can do is you can add a checker in the add reminder handler. So if I do if message dot owner, I think let's have a look at an inbox message. So we have this sample reminder and it has this not owner ID. Okay, it's from the entry called from, right? So this is basically the process ID which sent this message. So what you can do is you can create a whitelist for what processes can add reminders, and you can check if message dot from equals to some xyz process, and my process ID is this one right here. So I can paste that. So if the process ID is this one, which I know that it's mine, then I can make it add the reminder. But if it is not, then I can reply that you don't have access. Now you can also use message.owner over here, and when you are using your wallet to send message to a process, I think this owner value is equal to the wallet address. So you can try using that too. But since the interaction is between process to process, it would be better to have message dot from over here. I hope this clears your question.
Yeah, makes sense.
Oh
Makes sense.
yes, thank you, drum feed. There is this global variable called owner. Yeah, this was what I was looking for. And it has the value for the wallet that created the process.
That
So instead
created
of
it.
message dot from, you can have if owner equals to the wallet address.
The wallets. Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's very cool. Um, anyone else has some questions? This is it's now question and answer portion. Are we good for Q&A?
I think somebody raised their
Yeah.
hands.
Go, Christian.
Since we are talking about cron scheduler, do we have like, for example, I want to run this handler every 8 p.m. in the evening like that? Or do we have like for only like per interval? Yeah.
Yeah, so right now what's happening is since we set the cron interval to 1 minute, it will run every minute, and there will be some time that the handler is running at 8 p.m. So since there are 60 minutes in 1 hour, it will run 60 times during 8 p.m. So whenever that happens, you can try using this function timestamp to date time, and this will give you this object over here which will have the different data for when the handler was run. And this contains one of this is hour, right? So you can compare this hour, check if the hour is 8, and if it is 8 you can run your function and perform whatever task that you want.
So basically, we need to like make the interval every second. So we can trigger the handler exactly 8 p.m. like that. Or like, do we have like uh, at a certain time it will trigger the handler regardless of the interval?
No, right now I don't think that there is configuration for running the handler at a particular specific time. Right now only the intervals are there, which runs handlers at particular intervals instead of a specific time. So this is very similar to polling. We have the concept of polling in APIs. You hit an API at set intervals of time and check for data. You can implement a similar thing here.
So can you go back to where we're setting the the cron? Um, just wanted to check real quick.
Um, the the data for cron
I mean,
gets set when
where,
you create the new
there.
process. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interval.
Yep. Instead of 1 minute, we can have like 1 hour, and this will run the handler only once when it's only once every hour, which basically means it will run once at 4 p.m., the second one at 5 p.m., third one at 6 p.m., and continuing it will run once during 8 p.m. And at that time, you can check if the current hour is 8 p.m. and run
Yeah,
your function only at that time.
you have to time it for
Yeah.
now.
You
Yep.
can execute it exactly like an hour. So it will like
Yeah, or
give.
do 24 hours. Is that possible? 24 hours every 10. Like, if it's like 8 p.m. right now,
Yeah.
do 24 hours executed right now. So it executes next on the next 24 hours.
Yes,
I don't
that
know.
can be done
Oh,
too. Life
okay.
hacks.
There's a question here.
Yeah, interesting question. Well, you can.
You can have a
I
local
don't.
state
Sorry.
that
Yes.
I
Sorry, I
think you
didn't
can
get
have a
you.
local state that checks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly. A local state that checks how many times it has been run, and what you can try doing here is when you create your process, you set the state and it should run this many times. Have a variable that updates it and monitor the process. You run the dot monitor the command that I showed here. So it will send the cron messages actively. But as soon as 10 messages are received, we don't want any more cron messages, right? So we can unmonitor the process so it does not actively receive any more messages. And if it is in a dormant state, it's good enough for us.
So regarding that, can you unmonitor in code, not in CLI?
Well, there is a JavaScript function that can monitor and unmonitor these.
What I mean in
Like
Lua, like if you
um,
want to monitor and monitor using Lua on Handler function, is it possible? Is there a helper for that?
well, as far as I know, what monitor does is it sends a message to the messaging unit that I want you to monitor this process, and then it starts the monitoring thing. And when you unmonitor it, it sends a message again to that messaging unit that I want to unmonitor it.
Mm,
And I have not seen anyone doing this from within Lua, but it should be possible using the send message function.
yeah,
Like when you monitor, when I'm unmonitoring it, I
because
get this. I
technically
get
that's
this.
still a message, right?
Yeah, that's still a message.
Yeah, we just need to know where to send the
Yep.
message.
Yes.
Gotcha. Cool. Any more questions, guys? So what's your um I will ask questions if you don't have questions. So what's your uh what are your key takeaways for this session? Um what excited you more? Is it the SQLite or is it the cron or is it both? It can be both. Um is it better idea? I think there's still a lot more cool features that are here in better idea that we haven't talked about yet. I think we have um I've seen I think last week
Yep.
or this week the security audits. That was pretty cool.
Oh
Um
yes, right.
yeah, shucks. Uh that's really cool. I mean, this is a huge money saver. Renzo said right here. So both big capabilities for making the internet more decentralized. True, true, true. Yeah. Uh not all blockchains have CRON. Um because every smart contract um is not actually they're self-executing but not they're what's the word for that, they're not
Initiate.
self-initiating. Yeah, true. um yeah, there's really a lot of things that you can do here with Cron. um yeah, anything you want to add, Ankush?
Ah, yeah, sure. So to add reminders, we were using this send function here, right? But there is another way to do that, which involves the user interface. So if you go on to the left side, you can see an interact tab. If you click on it, it will have, it's just this intuitive UI for sending messages. So I can do add reminder here, the data, another reminder. I can set the year, whatever different tags that I want to send.
By the way, everything's a string on the message, right? What if the low code is for boolean, for example? um
Well, tags are strings by default, but if you want different data types, you can encode it into a string. And when you receive that, you can decode it back into
because
whatever data type you want.
gotcha. Haven't actually tried boolean yet as a tag.
Okay. And I think that's all I need to add. Year, month, day, hour, minute, time zone. Okay. So now that we have added all the data that we want to send, we also get the equivalent Lua code over here, which is pretty similar to the one that we wrote before. And if I click on send message, it will do the same thing and add a reminder for us.
Cool. I think we have a question again here from Fit.
Yes. When you send a command, is it possible to view the message being sent through the IDE? Okay, that's something that is not there right now. I mean, you can view the AO-Link page for the message that you send using the interact function, but for regular commands like the ones in these code cells, um, it does not really show. It does not have any button that redirects you to AO-Link right now, but that can be a good to have feature in the future.
Feature
So,
request.
yep, feature request.
Well, that's a good feedback. Yeah, I
Yes,
agree.
thank you, Trumpet.
Cool. Actually, I just remembered one uh one project that's being built here in Balangay is a farm game. Um, so I think they will use cron a lot in their project. I'm not sure if she's here. So yeah, I think they're quite busy for the weekend. But yeah, one project is building a farm game.
Yes, sir. 2D farming game.
Yeah, I think I've seen one screenshot of that of their game in Discord already. Um, I think it's Sendev, right?
Yes.
That's building that. Yeah, cool.
Uh, I have another question. Since this cron is like just a handler that can be called by another process, how can we prevent this cron handler to be called by uh, outside process? So, like for example, another process called the cron action for this process. So they can like run the cron job manually, or like they can set another interval to run this cron task.
Right. So similar to the way we modified the add reminder handler, we were checking if the owner is wallet. You can do a similar thing with the cron function. So if I go into the cron message that I have received here, you can see that the from value is equal to the my wallet address. So you can do the same thing and check if message.from is equal to our wallet address. And using this, you can prevent any third party from accessing your cron handler.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
So it's more of a whitelisting
Yes.
of your own wallets that's
Yep.
used for deployment for. Okay, good. That was actually one of my biggest concerns, like because we're building in the open web, right? I mean, in the like all processes can be um accessed by anyone and can send messages uh like from anyone. But yeah,
Yep.
I think this makes sense. Cool, cool, cool. Anyways, it's you pala, Aris. I thought it's a different Christian because we have another Christian building. Um, yeah, Aris is the one I was talking about that's building the farm game.
Okay, cool.
Uh, what else? Anyone else, guys? That's the question. For anyone building here in Balangay, do you think you will use Cron and SQLite as well? Actually, for me, I think I will use all the workshops, like AI and AI. I will use that. SQLite, I will use that. CRON, I will use that. Um, so it's now getting overwhelming, to be honest. Like, but yeah, I think with better idea, I can build my backend um, pretty easily. I think.
Yep, you can. Oh, by
Yeah.
the way, since you mentioned AI on AO, I just remembered that
Did you?
we have a really cool integration with AO Package Manager. So
Yeah.
if you want to
Yeah.
install any packages on your processes, you can just go on to the packages tab and open whatever process you want to install. You will get all these different options. You can get the readme and easily install packages. And this also has Llama header here,
Yeah. It
which,
orbit as well.
yep, it has Orbit as well.
Yeah, cool.
Pretty easy to install packages from here.
And once you're ready to deploy, you can have a security audit as well, and the unit testing, right? You have a
Yep,
unit testing here as well. Like,
yep, we have, there's a unit testing package published by Tom. Yeah, the test runner. Cool stuff.
really cool. No, nothing's really stopping developers, to build.
Yes.
Everything's everything's already given. Like,
Oh, also a couple of hours ago, or I think yesterday, Tom published another package for building on the reality protocol that
reality
was
protocol.
recently announced. So this is currently under development, but should be ready quite soon. So you can create different worlds similar to Llama Land using this package.
Super cool. You tried it, right? You tried it already. I saw it in Twitter.
Oh, nice.
What's That's the game, like, because every day, like, it's almost every day that there's something being shipped, not just in Better Idea, but in the entire AO Arweave ecosystem.
Yep, correct.
Um, yeah, sometimes it's hard to keep up. Like, what else is missing, right? But yeah, that's the challenge, and it's a pretty good problem, I think, because there's always something new that's being shipped. Um, yeah, pretty cool, pretty exciting. Anyone else has a question? Um, any last things you want to add, Ankush, before we end? I think this is a pretty cool session once again.
Yep, that's all by my side.
Cool. Anyone else? Going once, twice, no questions. Cool. And again, this session has been recorded for your team members, for your friends, and for future generations builders in the AO ecosystem. So we will post this again on our Discord, probably tonight or tomorrow. We just wait for the processing. But yeah, again, go use Better Idea for all your builds. I highly suggest it. And if you need points, orbit points, if you need wrapped AR for your Llama herder for your AI and AO, or if you need anything, guys, if you're building in the Balangay Builders program, just go ask in Discord. We have a specific channel there for um, the tested token request. We also have the channel for the developer resources. Everything's included there already. If you're building a game, we have Unity 3D for AO. If you're building an AI, we have that as well. Everything is there already for your convenience. So 3 weeks, 3 weeks left to build. Um, we're really looking forward for all the builds. Um, I still have. I just no. I not that I still have 3 weeks. I just have 3 weeks to build as well. Um, that I'm feeling nervous now, to be honest, because there's all these things happening. But yeah, we'll keep pushing through. So again, see you next week for our session next week. We don't have a Wednesday session, or we don't have a Wednesday workshop next week. Next workshop will be about pitch. Actually, it's not technical. Um, Let me just make sure that I'm saying it correctly. Mentors. So next week, let me just plug this in. It's August 3 next week, right? It's August already next week. Wow, that was fast. Okay, so August 3rd will be our next workshop that's about pitch creation and presentation. Our Vivinia can attend as well, so this is open to everyone still. Um, our mentor will be Owen Kirwan from Ionic Group. He's a very good friend of mine. He's actually my co my teammate here in Balangay Builders program for the one that we're building. Um, so he will be teaching us about pitch creation and presentation, like creating a deck, a pitch deck, and doing the demo as well. Because I think he has closed several investments and startups as well. Um, yeah, see you next week and see you in Discord. Have a good day, everyone. Have a happy weekend. Bye bye. Thank you, Ankush. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you, RV Philippines.
Thank you, Sir
Bye bye.
Ankush.